There's a lot of talk out there these days about what engine components make the best power under boost, whether you're dealing with a supercharger of any kind or a turbocharger. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions. And on this episode, we're gonna find out what the difference is between a cheaper, lower and lower flowing cylinder head and a much higher end, higher flowing cylinder head. And I gotta tell you, we're doing this kind of for my own interest because everybody says cylinder heads don't matter under boost. Maybe they're not as extreme as that, but they're saying it just doesn't matter as much when you have a blower. Meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, well, if you're trying to cram a whole bunch more air through the engine with boost, then wouldn't you want a cylinder head that's capable of moving all of that air? That's what we're gonna find out here. It's gonna be a direct A and B test with two different cylinder heads with the same supercharger and the same drive ratio. Let me tell you how we're gonna do that. First of all, the basic engine. This is our Dart Machinery assembled crate engine. Actually, it came as a short block. It's a Ford Windsor at 363 cubic inches. This is the same architecture as like a 302 Ford with an 8.2-inch deck height, but it's an aftermarket Dart block with a big bore and a stroker kit, which gives us the 363. It's about 10-to-1 compression with the 62cc chambers that we've got in both the cylinder heads that we're going to be testing. The camshaft that's in this is a solid roller custom from Comp Cams. It's the one that we tested in the blower versus regular cam test. The specs at 50 thousandths tap at lift, 244 on the intake, 258 on the exhaust. It's about 600 lift and a lobe separation angle of 113. Up top, we've got an Edelbrock Victor intake manifold, and we'll be running a 750 Holley XP naturally aspirated and a Demon blow-through carburetor with boost. And the boost that we're talking about is coming from our killer ProCharger F1A94, a 1200 horsepower capable blower that we will be tuning down to make neighborhood a 720 for our testing. Now we get into the meat of the cylinder heads. They're both from Dart Machinery. The first set that we're gonna run is right here. These have a 195cc intake port and they are as cast, and likewise, the chambers on them are as cast, not CNC cut at all. So this is going to be sort of the mid-range head for Dart. Not super trick, kind of standard cruising model street head. And we're gonna compare it to a far more radical head, which is the Dart 225cc Pro 1 that is CNC ported and that does have CNC combustion chambers. And so we'll find out what the difference is between those two cylinder heads naturally aspirated, and then we'll do the same thing under boost. So we'll be able to look at the trend NA and the trend boosted, and once again, find out what works better with boost. So the first one up, once again, is gonna be the AsCast 195. Let's roll this thing into the dyno and see what kind of power it makes. Are you super excited?
I'm excited. I don't know about super.
It kind of does what it's expected to do. Honestly, we've seen this engine make more power with some CNC ported heads in the past. These are as cast, and they delivered 433 pound-feet at 5,200 RPM, and the horsepower 488.3 at 6,700 RPM. I don't know where to go from there other than to add a ProCharger.
I know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
Big belt, big supercharger.
Let's plonk that baby on.
All right, here we go with the ProCharger. Our changeover here involves three things. First, we're gonna change to a blow-through supercharger Demon carburetor. Second, we're gonna install that ProCharger centrifugal supercharger. And third, we're gonna send Dulcich in here to retard the ignition timing. And by the way, we're running 116 octane Sunoco fuel in all of this, both NA and blown.
How long we'll have this thing running with boost? What I'm going to do here is retard the timing because we're running boost and it can't tolerate the same timing as NA.
Now it's a party. We're gonna fire it up with ProCharger Boost. So it's a happy day to the tune of 710 horsepower at 6,900 RPM, and it made 593.9 pound-feet of torque at 5,500 RPM. Look at the nice, happy curve.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful
so much
curve.
smoother than it was NA.
Oh, it was kind of kinky and looked way worse than NA. It looks great now.
Let's compare it to NA, just because we can. Always refreshing to see. Of course, the red lines are naturally aspirated, the black lines are under boost. What else would you expect? This is not a shocker.
No.
Let's see what the boost is. There's our boost curve. A dead climb like we always see. The peak boost is 10.9, call it 11 PSI, all the way up at 7,000 RPM. All right, gents, I think we're up for a cylinder head change.
Yeah!
Yay!
So yesterday, it seemed like the ProCharger went on pretty quick and pretty easy. So I thought it'd be fun this morning just to go ahead and see how quickly we could remove the ProCharger. I think we can set a record.
Just have to be smooth. Smooth fast. There we go.
That happened in probably less than what? Anybody time it?
2 minutes exactly.
2 minutes. Heads that we're installing now are the 225 CNC ported. The other heads were the 195 as cast. So this head has a larger intake port and actually on a flow bench has more flow capacity. So we're hoping for more power, normally aspirated as well as supercharged.
Grandpa Brulé is the answer man. He just fixes everything. So what happened is the bolt pattern for the headers on this cylinder head was completely wrong. Me and Troy rifled the giant header pile, could not find the right thing, so finally Brulé said, stand back. I've got this handled. He transferred the bolt pattern from the heads onto our old headers, drilled out the flanges, and now Troy's got it installed over here, and we're ready for our A/B test between the 195 as cast heads and the 225 CNC ported heads. Before we get into it, I have something that's been weighing on my mind really badly, and I know I won't sleep tonight. And I can't wait until you actually watch this episode.
Okay.
I called you Grandpa Brulé.
I suppose that was a term of endearment.
It was. I said you were the fix-all master.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Well, see, it was a term of endearment.
It
then,
was.
So I'm flattered.
So let's have a look at power.
Okay.
All right, we got an increase in both of the power numbers, 521.5 horsepower and 441.4 pound-feet of torque. So that's up on both those peaks.
Oh, that's a huge improvement
Yeah.
over what we had.
This doesn't look like it's up to me.
Well, that might not be.
Let's look at the overlay.
I don't think that's a surprise, though, when you go that much bigger in a cylinder head to lose a little bit of bottom end.
The torque kill actually isn't as bad as I thought it would be.
No.
The black lines here are the 225 head and the red lines are the smaller head. And you can see it definitely gives some up. What is the rule about cross-sectional area versus like low-speed torque? Is there any math for that?
Not that I know of. You gauge a good head by how efficient the port is, like how much flow you're getting out of it.
Versus cross-sectional area, right? Isn't theoretically the smallest port that flows the most is the most efficient because of velocity, or is that BS?
There is some math as far as cross-sectional area and horsepower as well, because you can have too much velocity and the port can, they call it going supersonic.
But none of that's happening here.
Not there, no.
It's just a matter of, we guess, it's moving more air faster down here with the smaller port and not up top.
More efficient. Part of what we aren't looking at here either is if the air is moving slower, there's potentially fuel fallout. There's a lot of other things going on other than just air, as far as port efficiency. So it's not a surprise, but it's actually a little, we don't always see that.
No, this is pretty much textbook, if you ask me. I mean, it picked up horsepower with the bigger, presumably higher flowing head, and gave up a little bit of torque at the bottom end.
Yeah, and it's also got a CNC chamber and stuff. It's getting a little bit better action around the valve, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, a good change. I mean, that's a choice that I would make if I was building something I cared about having top end.
When you're buying an aluminum cylinder head for performance, that's what you're looking for.
What you do. So I always go to the biggest one. I know it's wrong, but I just, it's like,
me too.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would have started with, is the 225.
Yeah. And wondered if they had a 245.
Right, yeah. Probably not always the best thing, but it's the way I go. So what is the increase there at peak from 488? Yeah, 488 to 521.
Yeah, 520.
So the question is, when we put the supercharger on it, will we see an even bigger gap? I always say that's what I'm looking for to find out, is the bigger head better with boost? That means it's got to make a bigger gain than what it did NA.
I'm going to step out this time and say, nah.
Really? You're admitting it?
Yeah, it's
okay.
I think that the boost helps a whole lot of bad cylinder head or less cylinder head.
I think the better head is better with boost.
Okay, well, it isn't a party till there's boost, so let's go whoop it up. We're gonna go in the cell and hang the ProCharger once again to find the final answer if you really need bigger heads with boost. Is that what it was? Bigger is better with boost?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see if Dulcich is right. My favorite ProCharger. Enough jibber jabber. We're going big heads with boost. I have no idea. I wasn't peeking.
I was.
Yeah.
Good. Ooh, big heads with boost. 721.2 horsepower and 602 pound-feet of torque. That's not a massive gain at all.
No.
You win?
Yeah.
Because he said that it matters less with boost. How much less? We got to look at the overlay. Steve's going to pull up the curve that we had with the 195 as cast heads with the blower as compared to these 225 CNC heads with the blower. Not that much.
No.
And now should we look at it NA?
Yeah. I don't know what I don't know. I never know what Dulcich knows.
Looks like I didn't know.
You didn't know.
No.
You said bigger is better with boost, and bigger is not as much better with boost, I don't think.
I mean, it was better, but not that much better.
Interesting. So here's the Steve Brule science that was in his Dyno brain before we ever started. Look at the difference up at the top end in power between the smaller head in green and the larger head in red. Pretty good gap right here. Now on exactly the same scale, look at the difference between the smaller head in blue and the bigger head in black under boost. And you'll see that the gap is much less. And interestingly, it doesn't diverge as much as this one does. It seems to hang the same from 58 800 all the way up. Okay, so what's interesting about this is it means that what everyone says is true. Heads don't matter with boost, or at least not as much.
At least not as much. I mean, that pretty clearly spells it out right there.
And as we all know, you can fix this change between the big and the small head with another quarter pound of boost.
Absolutely. And you know, like we talk about so much, it really depends on what you're doing and what you want to do. You know, everything matters. It just doesn't matter as much with the blower.
Yeah, if you're going all out for that last horsepower, I guess you do get the bigger head. But what I know now, I would save the money on it and throw a little bit more boost on it.
Yeah, or if you're contemplating stepping up the cylinder head while you're putting your blower on, you might just be barking up the wrong tree with that whole idea.
Maybe.
Right? What about the boost level?
Bingo. What we're curious about here, and we're going to look at it on a graph, is if the boost changed with the bigger head. Theoretically, if there's less restriction in the intake port, if it's flowing more air, maybe it makes less boost. Aha! So the difference in boost all the way up at the top is 1.8 psi. And we've seen this before, putting bigger cams in, changing the intake manifold, bigger cylinder heads, bigger engine, it tends to reduce boost. And in this case, it's making more power at less boost. But let's talk about that, because I think it's an important thing to understand is when you talk about boost, it's a measurement of intake restriction or of airflow restriction.
Yes.
Basically, the blower is trying to cram the air through, and when it's a smaller hole, there's more resistance, so the boost reads bigger. When there's a bigger hole and less resistance, the boost reads smaller, but it's making more horsepower. And the problem is people throw around all the time, oh, how much boost are you making? 7. Oh, you can run that on pump gas, you know, but how much boost are you making? 14? Well, maybe you can run that on pump gas if you've got stock cylinder heads. The question is the pressure difference, you know, what's happening there that's making more power? Is it the same air making it to the cylinder at lower boost?
Well, you can call it pretty close to the same air, but it's less resistance to flow, and thereby less pressure is required to move that air through that port.
And therefore, it's making more power for a bunch of reasons. The air is getting into the cylinder more efficiently, and the blower has got less parasitic drag because it's not working against as much of a load. So that's the big thing. If you're doing that, you're stepping up the engine airflow. A lot of people do that. It's go, oh no, you gotta compare it at the same boost level or it's not scientific. I disagree. The pulley ratio on the blower is exactly the same. The only thing that changed is the 2 cylinder heads and the boost dropped and it's making more power. And so if we up the boost, all we're doing is upping the boost.
And we're adding more air through this whole system by upping the boost.
In other words, let's say we put a smaller pulley on. Well, we could have put a smaller pulley on with the other head too. It still would have made more boost with the smaller head than it does with the bigger head.
With the same supercharger, absolutely.
Right, and the same ratio.
Yeah. The engine's more efficient with this head at higher engine speeds.
Which is why it makes less boost.
Yes.
Right.
I just think that's an important and interesting concept to understand.
It is, because it's not that easy.
We did the stupid thing. We put this supercharger that's 1,200 horsepower capable on a stock 350 Chevy. And it was a disaster. Stock cams, stock cylinder heads. What did it make on the chassis dyno?
Oh, around 300 at the wheel?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was worthless.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Awful.
Because it was making a ton of boost and none of it was doing the engine any good.
No place to go is right, yeah.
Oh, hold on, my phone's ringing. Pro charger? Oh. Okay, I'll tell the guys. Hang on. They said we're embarrassing them.
What?
They asked me to take the intake tube off and make actual power with this thing.
Good with me.
You want to see where it goes?
Yeah.
I want to go all out with the boost and see how much power this pooch can make. But we do have our answer about cylinder heads. It matters less with boost. Now let's go for the glory run. Look at the swagger on Brule.
Oh, he's just sauntering into this.
I know. I've smashed all the fear out of him.
no fear.
You don't care anymore.
Well, not when it's this easy, you know? I mean, it's just good parts and good stuff, and it's just good fun.
Yeah. Well, I think we made 1,000, but let's have a look at the actual facts. Oh, it didn't capture it. It went 998.7 horsepower. We saw 1,000 horsepower when it was flashing by on the screen. I feel comfortable calling 998.7 1,000 horsepower. And for the record, 759 pound-feet of torque. And what was the boost on that pull? So we made 17.3 PSI. Right up there at 6,900. See how it goes flat right on the end of the curve? Yeah. That's very likely belt slip. Yep. In fact, it's almost certainly belt slip.
It was good up to there, though.
Yeah, that is what this Pro Charger is meant to do. That's why it was born.
Yeah, this is not a 700 horsepower supercharger. This is, like you say, this is what it's meant to do. We just put things back to where they were normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we took off the restrictions and
plugged that hole that was this big. Good stuff.
This makes me pretty happy. I think we learned a lot about cylinder heads here, and then we had some fun making 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah, at 363 cubes, which is ridiculous.
You know what we really should do?
What?
We should change the theme of the show, and we should make 1,000 horsepower on every episode of
Engine Masters.
Got these guys on board with it. Yes.
I trust in lies that wore a face. Now I'm the ghost you can't replace. Cut by betrayal, stitched by pain, but now our eyes unleashed again. You forged a monster in disguise, but I've become your last surprise. I've got a blade within, cutting through all your sins. I won't break, I won't forgive. This is the way I live. Your kingdom falls tonight by hands that once held your sweet deceit, your velvet chains are nothing now but rusted stains. I found my strength in shadowed cries, a warrior born from severed ties. You forged a